guess maybe they replaced it or replaced the inside.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry, my hair looks such a fright, and I look such a fright. I'm not even sure if there's going to be audio on this. So this is basically just like a test run. My name's Janet Mabius. If you have the audio at all, you're hearing my husband in the background. He's on the phone with somebody. He's having phone issues. I don't know how long I'm gonna live stream this, because I tried to do a video before. It wasn't on YouTube, I don't think. It was through another means, and I can't seem to figure out how to transfer, because I've got a bunch of videos, like 4 or 5 of them at least, maybe half a dozen, that I'd like to put on my YouTube channel here, but I haven't yet quite figured out how to do it. Now, my husband, he's said that, well, first off, you have to be in YouTube, which I am, and I am a, parapsychologist, astrologist. I'm Wiccan. I've been practicing for about 32 years now. Don't worry, I'm a good witch. I always tell people that because, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad in the world. So I'm not trying to judge anybody or anything like that at all. I wanted to give a shout out to Paranormal Files, Keeper of the Second, a bunch of other paranormal sites that I visit. I don't, until I am sure that I have audio on this, or I've, got this all sorted, just kind of bear with me, guys. I'm at home, and I just saw a live stream from Colin Bailey, Nick, and Peyton, sorry. It's like about 15 after noon here. We're Eastern Standard Time, I guess, so I don't know what time it is in Austin, Texas or anything. But, I'm glad that you guys got out of that situation safe when you were behind that Hobby Lobby. And, if that was me, I don't know. I probably would have ran too. So I'm glad you guys are safe, and I can imagine how scary that must have been. So, I'm going to be going to Ravenwood Castle here on the 28th, probably, of this month, April, and it's only going to be for one day. So after this little experiment, and everything, and if I can figure out the audio and make sure it's going to be, hearable, I've got a lot of, different things that I would like to cover. I'm not sure where to start myself. But Ravenwood Castle, they're somewhere in the area of Ravenwood Castle. There is a tunnel that they spoke of, and I saw it on their website, that people actually came into Ravenwood Castle and was asking directions to this place. But apparently a lot of paranormal investigators have gone through this tunnel, and it's seriously haunted. And, I just have a little tiny camera, so I don't even know if it would be able to pick up much. I also have a headlamp thing, that's got you people, you guys have seen headlamps, but basically it's like a hat kind of over top of your head. But anyway, I'll probably wear it on here sometime just for the heck of it, so people can see what kind it is. I've always wanted to do, paranormal investigating myself, but where do you start? You got to have a camera, obviously. You got to have locations. You got to be able to get there. I do have a car. I'm on fixed income, so, I'm not, don't got a bunch of money, and, I'm broke right now myself. So this is just like a pilot video, I guess, and there's probably, I don't even know if anybody will view this or not, or I'm still trying to figure out the whole YouTube thing and how to navigate and how to use it, so that I can have good content, figure out what that is, and how to get it on here. Loved your shirt, Colin, the leopard print. That was cool. That was one, leopard print's one of my favorites. That I don't wear it very often. You have to be at least I do. I have to be in a certain kind of mood to be able to wear it. But it's, I got a real pretty long skirt, and I got a real pretty blouse that's all lacy and stuff. But I wanted to say, great job, guys. Love you bunches. Me and my husband are, I don't know about him so much, but me, I'm definitely a big fan. Not that he isn't. He's into different, he doesn't hasn't really watched that much paranormal stuff with me, so I guess, I don't know, maybe it's not so fun for him or whatever. Usually he's on his computer playing computer games, and I'm sitting in here. This is pretty much where I live, on this couch and everything. So, but anyway, I'm just trying some things out here, trying to figure out stuff. I wanted to give a shout out to the EWU crew. I don't know that I'll ever get to meet any of you. Paranormal Files, would love to meet you guys. Would love for all of us to do an investigation at the tunnel at Ravenwood Castle. I have some video footage from Ravenwood, but again, until I figure out how to get it put on here and start getting more familiar with everything else and how to work things, it'll just stay, in the pictures thing that I have it in on my computer. But I really do need to figure out what this whole audio thing is about and why it's not working. And it said something about allowing access to my camera. So, okay, yeah, there's this camera here, the little, like right there. See where my finger is? That's where my camera is. It's a little tiny, thing. I mean, they're not big. But, don't know. I mean, there are spirits here in my building that we live in, but I haven't really had much encounters with one. Like, I did a seance down in the basement one time with a friend. And, I mean, it went well. The light in the next room I went ahead and left on so she wouldn't be afraid, and stuff, because this stuff's all new to her. And she's not, closed-minded about it, at least. So that's good. But, let me see. I'm trying to think here. I don't want this one to be boring, but again, like I said, it's a pilot. So, okay, what else? I was born in Pontiac, Michigan. Have lived primarily different parts of Ohio all my life. This building that we're in right now, we've lived for roughly, in my count, about 12 years, somewhere around there. We've switched landlords recently, and the new landlord's a pretty nice guy. He's a little Jewish fella, and he's very soft-spoken, and he's trying to do these places upright and trying to, make them more refurbished, I guess, because I don't know, I have no idea, like, how old this building is or anything. But once I get successful with this, and if I have to use my camera in connection, my little red one, which is around here somewhere, I could show it to you guys, because this is just an experiment, so not sure how it's going to turn out. Try not to knock a bunch of stuff over. This is one of my favorite. I love this little rainbow, shimmy, shiny kind of look, and I've got a couple of other items that look like this stuff, and I'm going to get like a whole set of them. Okay, here it is. That's my little tiny camera. It's not very big. It's a Canon. And there I just see that's got it like a zoom lens, and it's got the little, the screen on the back. So, and I can get about, 30 minutes worth of video roughly on this. I've experimented and found out 30 minutes and, before a battery dies, and I've only got like 3 batteries to it. So whenever one dies, I just switch it to another. I have a nice camera stand that my husband gave me, that because he got himself a new one recently. And so anyway, I guess this is, I've been like, no, almost 9 minutes. Why is it flashing? I don't know. But I will see what I can do with this, play it back, make sure that the audio is on it. If not, I may actually set my camera up and hook it up to the computer, and maybe if we can use the audio that way, that would be great. Okay, let's see. Capricorn, birthday January 9th, 1969. I call myself an old lady already, but I'm only 50, so, a lot of people, they still call that young, and to me, I guess it is, but, I tend to live more like Forever 21, kind of mentality, which, some of my friends and loved ones that know me, they can handle it. Others think that probably I'm like too eccentric or too, I don't know about outlandish, but there is a Fort Hays close to us that, I mean, it's just like a maybe 10-15 minute drive, somewhere around there, because you have to go to downtown Columbus to access it. You have to go down Cleveland Avenue, and it's when you turn right off of Broad onto Cleveland, it will be on the right hand side. But most of the buildings are boarded up, if not all of them. And I mean, as far as I know, just by looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, well, obviously this place is not, it doesn't, function anymore. The buildings are still standing, but I wonder if there's any hauntings over there. I wonder if there's any spirits that wander around in the buildings and just kind of hang out and whatever. But getting access to them, who would you talk to? I'm guessing you would have to, I don't know if you'd have to go through governor or military or what, to get permission to get access to it. But having just, as menial items as I do, I don't even know, like, how much I can do at this point. But, because 30 minutes, that's not bad, but it's not great either. I'd like to be able to have, like, an hour or longer video footage on my camera. But, I got to start somewhere. I mean, I'm kind of amateur photography too. I want to do some, I call it witchy-related stuff, Wiccan stuff on here. Do some actual, rituals and things just for the curious out there. And hopefully Paranormal Files will, check it out just to say hey. And any suggestions or anything that any of them have that could maybe help me with this, I would gladly appreciate, because I know you guys are busy. I know you're traveling a lot. I know, you're exhausted a lot of times when you've been traveling for a solid week. I can imagine. But forgive my long pauses. Like I said, I'm still new at this. I don't want to have a bunch of meaningless stuff on here. I'm doing a beauty course right now, cosmetology. It's something I've always wanted to do. All my life, and now I'm finally doing it, and I'm doing really good on my exams. I got an 84 in my last exam that I did, 84%, so that's a passing grade. If your grade drops below 70, then you have to retake the test, and I'm doing it through Stratford Institute, which is, they have an online, website and everything. You can do your lessons from there. A lot of the materials that they send you that is part of your course, whatever books and things, you get to keep, which I think is cool. I actually have a diploma, and I'll try to get a good picture of it on here, in a future video, that says parapsychology and astrology, because that was the first course through Stratford that I actually completed, and I had an 80% grade point average, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. But it's parapsychology and astrology. So yeah, I could do birth charts, I can do, tarot readings, I can do aura readings, I can see people's auras. I'm still learning the colors though, because they say if you have murky colors, if you look at a person's aura and you see shades that are kind of murky or dark, and they just kind of seem off, that there may be that part of the body may have some kind of problems or dysfunctions, or, like me, I mean, I suffered a concussion from, a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. I was physically attacked in the back of our building here. It was 2:00 in the morning. My husband was across the street. A major blackout had happened, and it took a lot of power out for I couldn't tell you how many blocks. But he went across the street because there was a lot of businesses over there. And he went over to the Grandma's Pizza there and saw that they were having issues. He wanted to make sure they were okay and stuff like that, and if there was anything he could do to help. So while he was over there, I had just come back from dropping my friend off at her home because we were hanging out that day. And there's a wooden fence that I'll try to get in a future video, that's alongside the back of my building, this window right here, guys. This goes out to the back of the building, and it faces the direction of the north. And when you look out the window, if you look to your right, you'll see this wooden fence, because there's other properties on this side of us, there's other properties on that side, and this big wooden fence, there was 2 wooden planks. Now these wooden planks, I'm sure you guys have seen them. They're roughly about that wide, and two of them were missing from the fence. I had pulled up in my car, and I, got out, and last thing I remember was two guys came through, and I'm not prejudiced, I'm not racist, I'm really not. I may have said comments before in my past that sounded that way, and maybe I was being that way, but really, truly, I'm not. But they were two black guys. One of them was heavy set. One of them was a skinnier dude. He had kind of like dreadlocks. The other one had the short nappy curls that were like real tight down on his head. He had tattoos, I think, on his arms, but I didn't really look at them because I didn't want to be obvious that I was looking at them, because I didn't want to give them a reason to shoot me. They both had bandanas over their nose and mouth, so all I could see was their eyes, obviously. They carjacked me, they pistol whipped me, and they robbed me. They took my purse, they took my car, and took off. They knocked me cold in the back of my head, back here somewhere on the right side. Now I'm having neck issues. I'm having dizzy issues. I have to be careful sometimes. Like if I just do the simple act of bending your head to look down sometimes like that, I'll get a dizzy episode. And that's scary. That's really scary, because imagine if you're out driving and you get a dizzy spell, and then you wreck, or something. I don't want to wreck and hurt anybody, So anyway, these guys, they one of them, the heavyset one, he said, "Give me the keys, bitch," straight up, his exact words. So I gave him the keys to my car, and then I forget if it was him that asked for the money or whatever, or I can't remember now, but one of them asked for the money, and I'm like, guys, there is no money. I have no money. What had happened earlier that day, and what I feel instigated this attack, even though it was random and it was wrong, it was my fault. And I took responsibility for the fact that it was my fault. I went to the news channels. I called one of them. They came over. They did an interview with me. All they showed for my protection was you saw one of my arms hanging down at my side. I think I was wearing yellow that day, so it must have been a Sunday. Long story. I'll get to the color chart later. But they dragged me across the parking lot after they knocked me out. They dragged me across the parking lot, and they had grabbed me in such a way that it was almost like they had grabbed my thumb or my wrist in some weird, because now I have permanent nerve damage. I don't know what exactly they've done. I've never went to a doctor and asked them to specifically look for what injuries was caused, but I have carpal tunnel in both wrists, and but they dragged me across the parking lot. When I came to, one of my shoes was off, and weirdly enough, it was standing up like this, up against the back of a bumper of someone else's car. How they managed to get my car out of there without running me over, I don't know. But I'm glad they didn't run me over. I woke up, I was shaking and convulsing on the ground, I was throwing up, I was in shock, and I was, there was a different black guy standing over me now, but this one, he wasn't one of the ones that attacked me. He had a cell phone, and he just happened upon me. He was walking down the alley, because there's an alley in back of our place, and he got on his cell phone, he called 911, bless him, and I thank him for that. I don't know the guy's name, I don't know that I've seen him since, but if he's out there, I do thank him, because he really helped me a lot. By this time, after a handful of minutes and me laying on the ground, I was shivering, I was cold, anyway, the backstory earlier that day. Me and my friend was out running around, just having a fun day, just going out to the mall or whatever we felt like doing. And back then, I was getting my SSI checks in the mail, and the envelope's usually about that long, and it's a bright blue. Okay, it's unmistakable. The neighborhood that we live in, we hear gunshots outside our window all the time. Thank goddess we're on the top floor, because this place has only got really 3 floors. It's got a basement, it's got your first floor, which there's 4 apartments down there, and then it's got the second floor, which is 4 more apartments. So yes, there's actually 8 apartments in this building, and there's 2 doors into each apartment, which I thought was odd. Anyway, so I had stopped off, to get my check in the mail. And I got it out of my mailbox. I went out to the car, and this is where I screwed up, guys. This is what really, I think, caused the attack. around this area, people know, okay, the hoodlums, the druggies, the drug dealers, the murderers, whoever, they know what that blue envelope looks like. They know what that blue envelope means. That means money. Okay, we're going to rob this bitch. And what I should have done, I was flashing the damn thing around when I came out the door of the building. And what I should have done was I should have just stuck it in my clothes or something underneath or hid it in some fashion and then just walked out, got back in the car and went on with our day. And then I believe that maybe it wouldn't have happened. But I painted a neon sign over my head when I came out showing that blue envelope, and these jerks that attacked me must have seen it. You know, they must have been around or something, and somehow they saw it, and they thought, okay, we're going to rob her because she's obvious. We know what that check means. Finally, after, coming to and everything, my husband, I remember looking up, because I was still laying on the ground. I was afraid to move. I didn't know how the extent of my injuries were. I didn't know, if it was safe to move, and so I wasn't chancing it. The ambulance was on its way. My husband, I saw him walking up the steps, because our apartment is, I'll show you the back of it outside in a future video, but our apartment is the top corner on the right, and it's like this apartment right here on the corner of the building. And so there's there's like a landing. You go up one flight of steps, and there's this landing, and there's this window that looks out over the back of that's in the hallway that looks out of the building. So I saw my husband, Chris. He was, he was going up the steps. He looked out the window. He saw me on the ground. He saw some black guy standing over me with the phone. He flew down that fucking stairs so fast. I mean, if you would have blinked, you would have missed it. He was outside. He's like, "What the fuck happened?" And he was pissed. He was ready to kill the motherfuckers. But he was calling them out. He's like, "Where are you? Come out! He was cussing them to high heaven. They had already gone. And so he was very, very angry. And if they would have been around, he probably would have, seriously injured him, if not killed him. And it would have been, you attacked my wife, and it would have been, I can't say self-defense because I was in no position to fight. They had guns on me. One pointed a gun to my chest, the other one pointed a gun to my head. And I wasn't about to test fate that the fucking things were loaded, okay? So, I know I don't know, they're probably real weird about, profanity and stuff with these, so forgive me my sailor speak, cussing like a sailor. But this was a very scary moment for me, and I almost died. It could have very easily killed me, and I am grateful to this day that I came out of it, that I woke up, that I was in the hospital, I was being taken care of. And yes, that's my pentacle. That's one of the ones I wear. I'm very much a naturalist. These are all crystal bracelets, stretch bracelets. This is like a friendship bracelet, so it's like purple yarn. I've got another. See, I've got a couple more here. This one it's copper, and it's got these little things. You could turn this into probably a charm bracelet easily. This is a stretchy one that's got various symbols on it and stuff. But it's just the witch in me, I guess is the best way to describe that. So, after this, and we went to the hospital, and, I came home. I mean, I don't know, it was almost like I somehow had lost an entire year of my life. My husband just handed me my, whatever this is, 30-day success formula. Okay, whatever. But back to the paranormal. When I go to Ravenwood on the 28th, hopefully my daughter Alicia will be joining me. If not, I'll be going alone. And that's totally fine with me because I've seen the cabins there that you can rent, and they're a little pricey, $139 a night. But you can fit up to 4 people in each cabin. There's a little loft. There's a futon that you can pull out into a bed. There's a bedroom. There's a little tiny bathroom. There's no bathtub, sadly. But it's the cheapest out of the cottages and whatever. And they have 5 cabins down in this thing called the Huntsman's Hollow. Excuse me. Goodness, I don't know where all this gas is coming from. And there's 3 trailers on the left. When you're in the parking lot to the Huntsman's Hollow, there's 3 trailers on the left, 3 cabins, sorry. And then there's one here, and then there's one over here that they're oddly angled, like the front of one is this way and the front of another is more like this way, more like directly facing me or kind of offshoot or whatever. The 3 cabins on the left are the cheapest. The other 2 of the 5 are $10 more. Now, when I go on the 28th, I'm just going to ask them out of curiosity, why is it $10 more for these guys, but these 3 are $139? You know, it's just kind of a curious thing. With taxes, it comes out to, for one night with taxes, at $139. One of the cabins, one of the 3 is $157.42 with taxes. And they have very small, like the office that you go and check in and pay for your stay and everything. It's so small that they have like a shelf right across from the where you check in, and it's maybe like 4 or 5 shelves kind of thing. There's like glasses, drinking glasses that you can get. Let me grab one of them here because I got it sitting over here next to me. This is a Ravenwood Castle wine glass, and I got 2 of them. There's like a little raven on there. I don't know if you can see it, but these were only like $9.95 or something like that, you know, a piece. So they weren't that expensive. Let me see if I can angle this down a little better so I don't have to necessarily hold it on my lap. Okay, I've been 26 minutes into this now, you know, but back to the paranormal. You know, I've had a lot of experiences throughout my life. I have cleansed houses of negative entities. I mean, I'm not going to just come right out and say that it was a demon or whatever. I just know it was a bad spirit. And I didn't even know I had the ability to do this, but apparently I do. And I had a group of people with me, though, so I didn't do it totally alone. We all kind of came together and we did a chant that was a banishing chant. And it goes, I banish you by the power of the goddess and God. I banish you by the power of the sun, moon, and stars. I banish you by the power of earth, air, fire, water. And then you just repeat that, you know, however many times you feel the need to repeat it. And in this case, I said, demon be gone, or dark spirit be gone. We had this metal bucket, a decent sized bucket. It was probably maybe about yay big around, maybe about yay tall. And it was in the top, one of the top floors of the place. I think it was like the very top floor. This was a really nice house in the middle of a field. And this couple had, you know, they had animals in cages. They had like, you know, I forget exactly what, but they had like cats were running around and stuff. I mean, I didn't see anything to indicate that the animals were being abused or anything. So hopefully that they were well taken care of. But the couple knew that this entity existed, and they'd had previous, you know, encounters with it and whatnot. This is my Peggy Corn here. She's a unicorn, but my husband said she looks like a hippo and then a pig, and so I just came up with Peggy Corn as her name. A good friend gave it to me. I love unicorns, obviously fairies, wizards, witches, oh my, dragons, phoenixes, griffins, you name it. Magical creatures of all types. I even have a leprechaun. Fancy that. But I have, you know, Irish in my ancestry. I have Irish, I have German, Dutch, and a host of others. So I've had hauntings. I've done haunting places before. I've gone to haunted places before. But at the time, you know, I probably didn't even have a camera or didn't even think to have one. But, you know, and nowadays you can videotape on your phone. Mine actually is, yes, it's a multi kind of a purple, like various different shades of purple and blue. This more is my actual color, which is like they say it's an ash blonde, but of course it's riddled with gray because I'm 50. But, you know, I mean, the purple is my thing. I usually do the purple and the blue, and you can see my hair's like really, really long, and it's a freaking mess right now, so forgive my haggard appearance. Let's see. What are I'm trying to think of some of the experiences that I've had. Okay. Wait, no. Not that one, because that one was kind of scary. Well, I mean, you know, scary is scary, but stay spooky. Let's see. Trying to think of, okay. Had the seance recently, about a couple weeks ago in the basement, but then that basement got locked up. And sadly, we have a storage unit down there, so I'm hoping that we will get this matter resolved soon. And John, the building manager here, will finally get us he'll put a padlock on the basement door that is locked, that we can get into, because our storage unit is in there. So it's like we need to be able to get to our stuff, you know. There's a kid that runs around inside this building. I won't give any names, just for, you know, like safety reasons, and I'm not trying to, you know, diss on this poor kid, because I understand a little bit of his situation and background. His mom, I don't know if she's still working 2 jobs or not, but she frequents here because she has an uncle that lives here. And sometimes she's got 3 boys. She's got one that's fully grown adult out on his own, working a job, maybe has his own place by now, I hope, because he's a decent kid too. They're all decent kids, just bad circumstances, you know, poor upbringing. Don't totally blame the mom, don't know much about the dad, he's rarely brought up. But the mother is, you know, I mean, I'm usually pretty friendly with her, I have no reason not to be. And this middle child is the one in question, because there's like a younger one, there's a middle, and then there's the full-grown one. The middle one is the one that is increasingly becoming a problem here at our building, and I still love the kid. I try to have his back. I've tried to be kind of like a positive influence to him, and try to talk to him about things and say, dude, you know, why get in trouble? Why hang out with these guys that are just going to get you in trouble, and eventually you're going to end up in jail? You know, because the kid smokes pot. You know, I do too. I'm a stoner, so sue me. But, you know, I try to do mine in I can't really say moderate, because, you know, I mean, I'm one of those that, you know, I'm from sun up to sundown. But I can go days without it. I can go weeks. I can go months. Getting pretty low, so I'm trying to calm down on it now. But I wish they would make it legal here in Columbus, Ohio, because, I mean, I'm hearing all these other places that it's legal, and we're not living anywhere near those. So let's see. There's been, okay, there was an experience one time. I was in German Village, and I was living with this guy that I was dating at the time, and beautiful place, beautiful apartment, you know, wall-to-wall carpeting, central air, had a dishwasher I never got to use. And it was German Village, and it's a beautiful little village, you know. But their places are usually pricey, and I couldn't tell you what the rent was there, because I honestly don't remember. It's been too long ago, because I was like 18, 19, you know, when I lived there. But there was this day that I had woke up, and I think my the guy that I was dating, I'll go ahead and give his first name, because only I know who I'm talking about, and what are the chances that he's ever going to see this video. I hope he doesn't, because if he does and he realizes it's me, then I'm afraid that his obsession with me, he would end up trying to find me again. His name was Ken, and he's a Gemini, and, you know, you might say, why am I saying that? Well, I tend to speak in astrological terms to people. You know, what's your sign? I mean, it's a natural thing for me. Sometimes I can look at a person, and in a handful of minutes, with their mannerisms and their personality and my witch stinks, I call them, my psychic abilities, I'll just look at them and I'll go, oh, you're a Leo. And then they look at me all shocked, like, how did you know that? And I'm like, oh, well, you asked me, you know, I'm psychic. That's how I know. But it's been interesting. So I woke up, and I saw this guy. He was a full-blown apparition, guys, straight up. I mean, you could see through him, obviously. It looked like he was kind of slightly balding, like he had hair like from about here back, but I don't recall that it was very long. He appeared to be, now how I saw this so clearly, I don't know. I don't know who he was. I don't know why he presented himself to me. He was wearing bib overalls. He had, you know, like this, you could see the straps from the blue jeans part of it, and he was wearing kind of looked like a plaid shirt, maybe, I don't know. And then the sleeves were rolled up to about here. He looked like a farmer, basically, minus the hat, because I know some of them wear hats. But, well, at least some farmers that I think of. You know, I'm thinking, okay, you're out there in the morning. If you're a beekeeper, for instance, then you're definitely wearing the hat with the veil so you don't get stung. Sorry, my nose is itching. Now, of course, let's see, I've been doing this 34 minutes, and if there's no audio on this, I'm going to feel totally stupid. But oh well. So this guy, he smiled at me, You know, I did not feel threatened. He appeared at the foot of the bed, and he was just standing there, kind of like he was watching over me, maybe, or a guardian. He may have been an ancestor, even, for all I know. I mean, because I have a lot of ancestors that I never even got to meet, because they died before my time. They died like my great grandmother, my great great, like my mother's mother's mother. I never met either one of my mother's mothers. I do have some interesting backstories with them, as far as like they actually did moonshine, guys. They made the stuff. They had the distillery in the woods, and the whole thing. They got caught, obviously, got busted, sadly. But back in that time, because this is probably in the 30s or so, because my mom was born August 6, 1931. So yes, she's a Leo. And so this would have been back in the 30s, back in her childhood and stuff. She lived in the woods, a wooded area. She lived on a hill. I actually got to visit there a few years ago. I was in my teens when we went, and me, my mom, and a friend of the family went. And the friend of the family he's kind of like a dad to me. Because my real father, my biological, has been dead for 50 years. Well, not 50 years. No, he's been dead. Let's see, I was 20, 21. He's been dead a few years anyway. When he died, I was like 21, 20, something like that. So, this guy appeared, and he was there for like maybe, 1, 2, 3, if that long. And he was gone. And I was like, okay. It didn't scare me or anything, because like I said, I didn't feel threatened. But I saw him clear as day. And I wish I could have, had video footage of that. But I did not even expect it to happen. So I never saw the guy again, never saw the spirit again, don't know who he was, doesn't really matter. It wasn't a scary experience. I wasn't laying in a pitch black room and, had invisible hands pawing at me or any threatening thing like that. Others that I've had, like, being an intuitive and being a sensitive like I am, and I'm an empath and everything too, so I feel things that maybe others don't, or it may take them a certain amount of time to get open-minded enough to embrace this stuff and, deal with the frustrations of when you go to these haunted places. Yeah, the spirits aren't always going to want to talk. The spirits aren't always going to want to be known or to present themselves and go, hi, how you doing? Some of them bad, some of them good. I've dealt with very dark entities. I've had, I get feelings when I'm in an area that seems to be electrically charged, with energy, and I know that, okay, it's nothing in the building, it's none of the wiring, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like, I call it an inner knowing. Like sometimes I'll hear things come out of my mouth that, after I've said it, I will literally stop myself and go, whoa, where did that come from? And then I just go with it. But the wisdom and the knowledge is, I guess, decent enough. I'm always learning. I'm always trying new things. I would love to have my own coven someday, but it's not a pressing matter, because I really have no problem being a solitaire. But I can be in a coven as well. So usually I feel them. I mean, that apparition at the foot of my bed that time in German Village, that's the clearest one of the clearest ones I've seen. I also have the ability to predict death, which that is a difficult gift to embrace, because I try to see the blessings of having such a gift, but all I seem to see so far is the negative side of it. So until I can have more of a positive outlook on it or feeling about it, then it's not. I guess what makes it most difficult for me is if somebody's about to die and you can't do anything to stop it, and it's a really nice person, somebody that you really care about, somebody that you love, could be an ancestor, it could be just a friend. I've lost many. But I can go to places, especially like wooded areas, seems to be the strongest. And I'm able to tap into the energy. But anyway, so another one that I've seen, another actual apparition was a silhouette. So basically, you would view him as a shadow figure, but he was very definely outlined. I did not see any facial features. I just felt like I was looking at a shadow, but you could tell it was somebody leaning against a tree, and he was kind of leaning against it like this. It was in the backyard of this place that I lived at the time, and I was pretty young. I was in my teens then, and this is kind of a sad, story. There was this guy, I think his name was Dave, that used to live next door to me when I lived at this one place, and it was 536 West Town Street is what I know it as, because that was the address and stuff. It's still there today, but I don't know who's living in it or anything. But this guy's name was Dave. He actually was, at one time in his life, he was a Chippendale dancer. So I could actually say, I met a Chippendale dancer, cool. But he was a nice guy. He was attracted to me. I was attracted to him in a romantic fashion, but it just wasn't never going to happen because I was jailbait to him. I mean, I'm not going to send the guy to jail. Fuck that. So we would sit in his car out in front of the place because he lived next door to us, and we would just sit there and talk and hang out, really, is all we did. He never pushed anything. He never, asked me out or anything. I know he wanted to, but he didn't want to scare me, and when we would sit in his car, I would actually ask him if I could hold on to the keys, because I didn't really know this guy well enough that I wasn't about to get in the car with him having the keys. He could start it up and drive off with me, and who knows. But no, I never felt that way with him. But still, to be safe, I asked him, I said, could I hold on to your keys? And he's like, here you go, babe, no problem. Hun or something. He used to call me some kind of affectionate little thing. But I was sitting in the passenger side. He was sitting in the driver's side. And this is part of the predicting death. This is I think one, I don't know if it's actually the first one that I predicted, but it's pretty trippy. I was sitting in the passenger side, and I just kept getting this overwhelming urge to sit behind the driver's side of the car. I did not know why. It wasn't like I was suddenly feeling like going somewhere on a joyride with him or something, but it just would not go away. It wouldn't go away. It wouldn't go away. So finally, I was like, I got sort of a strange question, Dave. He's like, what's that, hon? I said, would you mind if I sat behind the driver's side of your car for a minute? I don't know why I'm asking this, but I get an overwhelming feeling to do so. And he's like, okay, no problem. I got to go to the bathroom anyway. So he went in and used the bathroom. And while he was gone, I sat in the driver's side. And all I did was it was this hand. I ran my hand over the steering wheel, like really, really slow. I immediately went into a trance. And because him and I were discussing, he was getting ready to make a trip to go see an ex-wife or something, I guess. And I don't remember if they had kids together or not. But he had to go out of town to see her. She invited him out to her place or whatever, and he kind of got a bad feeling right away. And now I wish that he wouldn't have gone. But so he had, bad feelings about, she was apparently, I guess, a real bitch. I don't know. But anyway, he was a little reluctant about going too. I think she gave him some kind of a false story, like she was talking about maybe getting back together or something or another. I don't know. But after we was having the conversation, and that's when I asked him somewhere during the conversation if I could sit behind the driver's side of his car, because he knew that I was witch. He knew I was psychic. And it didn't bother him. He was open-minded at least about it. And that's all I ask of anybody. Just be open-minded. You either believe it or you don't. But if you're too afraid to believe it, I do not judge you for that, because it's not for everybody. It can be a scary thing to open yourself up to the universe the way I do. So I'm sitting there and I'm running my hand over the steering wheel, and I went into a trance, and I was like, all of the exact words that came out of my mouth. When he goes back to see his ex-wife, he's going to be murdered, and they're going to suspect her. And then I went like this, and I was like, oh shit, what just happened? Because I didn't want him to die. He was a great guy, and he seemed like, he'd give you the shirt off his back if necessary. He was just really, really nice. And he was my friend, by all means, really, he was my friend. You know, we only had a couple of occasions that we sat out and talked in his car. But when that happened, when I drew away and I was like, oh my God, I was like, oh my God, no, 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 not him, please, not him. So after that conversation, and we called it a night, and I went in to go to bed, and he went in to go to bed. I don't remember how many days after he was getting ready to go on his trip. And then apparently I somehow knew or sensed, or somebody, a neighbor or something, saw him leave. So they're like, oh yeah, he went on his trip. And I'm like, oh shit. Because the whole time he was gone, I could not shake this feeling of that prediction that I made, that he was going to go back and he was going to be murdered and they was going to suspect his wife. And I just thought it was so unfair, you know, because to me, he was an innocent of sorts. So one day I was just randomly, you know, talking to my mom about I don't know what it was. And I said, well, I wonder whatever happened to Dave. Have you guys heard anything? And Mom's like, oh, didn't you hear? And I'm like, what? And I just knew immediately. I knew, oh, this is bad. I'm like, what? She said, he's been murdered and they suspect his wife. I mean, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, no. And I started crying. I literally started crying because, and it was like, I don't know if it was that same day or not, but it was like in the evening, because I remember it was night, it was summer. And our backyard then had a few like scattered trees. So I called it kind of like my miniature forest in a way. And the tree that was furthest from the house, from the back of our house, because, you know, there was our kitchen, and you go down the little steps, there was a door here, a screen door, and then there was obviously a solid door, but you go down the steps, and we had a decent little yard out there, and it was the very last tree, the furthest from the house, and I don't know, I heard someone calling my name. I was in the house alone, or I don't remember if my mom was there, or if I was there alone, or whatever, but I wasn't scared or anything. It was nothing for me to be at home alone, blah, blah, blah. And I heard, it was kind of like a whisper, kind of like, Janet. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I'm like, I listened again because I wasn't sure if I was imagining things or if I actually heard it. And I heard the name a little louder, and it said, Janet. And I'm like, okay, there's a spirit talking to me. What the fuck is going on? Should I be scared? Is it a threat? And then a third time, Janet, look out the window. And I'm like, okay. So I looked out the kitchen window, down at that last tree, perfect silhouette, obvious outline. It was a human body. This was not a demon. And I very clearly, I felt it in my heart chakra. It was Dave. He had come back from the dead, or not come back, but his spirit found its way back to me, and he wanted me to know that he had passed, that he was gone, and that he was sorry that we never got a chance to, you know, have more time together, or that we didn't really have a chance to build any kind of a decent friendship because suddenly he was just taken away. And you can imagine what I was feeling at that point. I remember after looking out the window, I walked over to the door and I looked out and he was gone. So I was only able to view him for like a handful of seconds, and I saw him very clearly, the outline. I knew it was him. And I just sat down at the kitchen table and I just cried because I had predicted this death and I couldn't do anything to stop it. And in my opinion, the short time that I did have with him, he did not deserve such a horrible fate. So, you know, I mean, I've always had ties to the paranormal since I've been walking and talking and could comprehend anything. And there's things like, one of my favorite stories is I was living at this house, 87 South Hartford was the address. It's a parking lot now. That whole street is a parking lot. Mount Carmel West took it over, and they took it all. They took every house down that was on that street. But anyway, while I was there, I had some interesting experiences. One of which is I was walking through the dining room one day, And back then, my mom always had these ingenious ways to make shelving units, like from like a board and like a stack of boxes underneath it. It would make it a certain height, so you could sit stuff down on it and whatever. So it was a stack of boxes. It was one of those type formations, but this box was at the top and there was nothing on it. There was stuff around it, but there was nothing on it. I stopped dead in my tracks. There happened to be a crayon laying on one of the boxes right there. I don't know why. And I wrote 2 names. Excuse me. One of them was, and I won't say his last name, like I said, because that was a very painful situation for me. Ken, the Ken that I was speaking of earlier. I wrote his name first, his first and last name. Now, I did not know this person. I had not met him yet. And I think I was about 14, 15 at the time. So I wrote his name. And then below that, I wrote another. Now, this name you should know. David Copperfield. You know, the drop-dead, gorgeous dude that, you know, made the Statue of Liberty disappear. Walked through the Great Wall of China, you know. Went to a lot of his shows, was always a really big fan, but after his last show that I went to, I don't know, I just kind of, I lost interest. The name, when I wrote Ken's name, and then I wrote David's below that, now this is where it gets really trippy and awesome. I was dating Ken at the time. I was 17. We went to the Ohio State Fair. And there was where I first saw David Copperfield. No joke. And when that moment happened, and David first walked out on the stage, because we were pretty high up in the bleachers, so he looked maybe like this tall, like microscopic to me. But it was Ken that I was destined to meet, or that I was fated to meet. And he led me to David Copperfield. So I thought, well, that's interesting, because once it really hit me, I was like, oh my God. Because it came back to me right away that the 2 names that I wrote on the box, and I wish to this day I would have kept that box. I didn't write a date or anything on it, I don't think. I just wrote the 2 names. Why? I mean, so I met David for the first time. I was a young, hot Barbie doll figure looking thing then. And I was wearing, real cute outfit and everything that day. And I had my hair done, decent and everything, because it was hot. So I probably most likely had it up, in some fashion. And this was, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first time that David announced to the audience that anybody that buys any souvenirs during or after the show, he would personally sign them. So you better believe I was like, oh, babe, you got to get me a picture. You got to get me a picture. You got it. And he's like, okay, let's go. So we went through the line. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. This is the beginning of some of my David stories that to me are definitely paranormal. He was looking, he would glance up every few seconds or whatever. He's trying to make eye contact with as many of his fans as he could, and that was a very nice thing to see, that he really cared about his fans. And then he locked eyes with me. And then I didn't think nothing of it. I figured, oh, he's just trying to make eye contact with people to show his appreciation, and he was just steadily signing whatever you bought. If it was a t-shirt, he'd sign that. If it was a brochure, he'd sign that. If it was a picture, whatever you bought, he would sign it. He literally did. He kept looking at me, though. He kept looking up and looking right at me. Directly into my eyes, not just kind of, it just directly into my eyes. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So that made me smile, and it made me blush. I literally felt the cheeks, I felt the blush. It was real funny. So I got the picture. After that was done and over with, and we walked away, we pretty much left after that. So then I decided to join the David Copperfield fan club, and there's a lot more, like I said, weird stories that happened that I will never forget. And I actually, not the last show of his that I ever went to, because it was the Palace Theater, I remember, but it was the show before the last one that I attended before I just stopped going. And that previously that night, as I was, buying the tickets on the phone and whatever, pretty much they sold out. They sold out like so quick, it wasn't even funny. I had two friends with me, Mike and Sue. They were like, we were like a trio. I mean, we were always hanging out and doing stuff together. And they were together. They were a couple. As I was getting anxious, as it was getting closer to the time for me to leave to go to the show, because at the time I wasn't driving. I don't think I even had a car or anything yet. But this good friend of mine, George, he ended up going to it with me, which I appreciated. And my two friends, Mike and Sue, wanted to go as well. So I went in, I bought my tickets and George's. And then I said, let me guess, they're sold out, right? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, no, wait, we had just got 2 cancellations or something. It was either cancellations and they ended up having 2 tickets that my friends got, that Mike and Sue got. But whatever it was that actually did happen, Mike and Sue ended up in the same exact row as me and George. And that just blew my mind because of the time lapse. So yeah, I think it was like I bought mine and then they went and they bought theirs, or I don't remember. But while they were milling around in the lobby, David came out because me and George hadn't gotten there yet. Mike and Sue got there first, but they didn't drive either, so they had to catch a bus, downtown to the Palace Theater so they could go. And they were milling around, just minding their own business. So Sue, my friend Sue, she said somebody tapped her on the shoulder, or she bumped into someone or whatever, and she turned around to say, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, it was David Copperfield. He looked at her and he's like, oh, hi, Sue, like he knew her. She had never met him before that moment, but he acted like he knew her, and she told me, and I was like, oh, wow. My mom made a prediction that night before I left for the show that she's like, oh, I know what's going to happen to her. I'm like, Mom, shut up. Don't say it, because I felt it too. I knew, but I didn't want to get my hopes up just to be let down. But she had predicted that I was going to get called up on the stage. And my reaction was a telltale sign that, yes, I was probably going to get exactly that. That was going to happen. So I was like all butterflies in the stomach and, like, oh my God. I was so crazy over this guy. It wasn't even funny. And I know I'm not the only one. There's billions of others. But that whole night was just, it was fucking trippy. So Sue's like, oh my God, how could he know me, Janet? There's other backstories to it, why we're pretty sure is what happened. So we got there, we got our tickets, and it turned out I just could not believe. Like, they weren't like directly beside us, but they were literally in the same row. They had such a big audience that night. They had to bring out several fold-out chairs, literally, and had like several layers up to the stage of fold-out chairs to accommodate everybody, because everybody wanted to see David. So there's this trick that he did. I don't know that he still does it, or it was a one-time thing, or if he did it for a short time and then quit doing it. He would come out on the stage at some random point in the show with a single red rose, live rose, not a silk rose, a very real rose. And he would most of the time he would try to go to the center of the stage, turn his back to the audience, throw it over his shoulder, and the lady that it landed closest to, or literally if it would land in someone's lap, whoever the rose found its way to would get called up on stage for a trick. So I was sitting pretty close to the front row. What would have been the front row if they wouldn't have put several, layers in front of us. But I wasn't complaining. I was still there. I was just happy to be there. I was on an aisle seat, so I was like right here. I could just get up and, walk to the stage, no problem. He did the rose trick. He threw it over his shoulder, and instead of doing it on the center of the stage, he decided to do it exactly on the left side of the stage where I sat. He threw the rose. It hit my friend George in the shoulder. There was an old lady sitting next to him, but because he was my friend and he knew how much this meant to me, he handed the rose to me. So I got to go up on stage and do a trick with David. And I can tell you exactly the trick. This ring that I'm wearing, which you guys probably can't see very well, but see, it looks like an engagement ring. It is an engagement ring from my husband. But I had a ring just like this. I believe it was sterling silver. It was the same in every way, same size, same color band, in my opinion. So I got called up on stage, and I was just a jiggly mess. It was funny. It was just so hilarious. And George actually took a picture of the expression on my face when I got called. I got up from my seat and was getting ready to go up onto the stage. So we were sitting at this long table, and he brought out an hourglass, about yay big. That wasn't very big. It had a very solid, thick base on both ends, and he was looking at my fingers, and he saw the ring, and he said, he's like, "Is that an engagement ring?" I'm like, "No," I said, "I won it in a sweepstakes." The whole audience, because I was being serious, I was being honest. That's how I won that ring. I won it in a sweepstakes, and it came in the mail and stuff. And he's like, everybody just started cracking up. Everybody, the whole audience, the whole room and I was just being honest. And David chuckled and kind of smiled and got a look on his face like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, he had a hacksaw, I think, or something. And he's like, made some comment where, he picked up the hacksaw and said, "That's probably how they made it." And he said, "Is it real? Is it a real diamond at least?" I said, "No." I said, "It's a cubic zirconia." I was being honest again. Whole audience cracking up. So he's like, "Well," he's like, "Janet," he said, "if you don't, mind," he said, "take the ring off, and I am going to put it around the center of the hourglass." I'm like, "Okay." So I took it off and handed it to him. He had a purple ribbon and a ring box. I held one end of the ribbon. He held the other. My ring was at the center. We both put it in the box together, closed it. He asked me to pick up the hourglass and examine it. I'll, make sure there was no trick doors or hidden compartments or any crap like that. Nope, solid as a rock. And he covered it with a cloth. And he's like, within, I think it was like a handful of minutes or seconds, I felt, because I was sitting at one end of the table, he was sitting at the other. We were sitting on pretty high chairs. These things were tall, because the table was tall. And I felt and heard, I kid you not, this sound of a solid object, okay, coming up through the table. And I'm like, what the fuck was, and I knew in my head, I was thinking, what the, but I didn't react. And it went from, because when we put the ring in the ring box and closed it, he's like, "Now," he said, pull the ribbon slowly with me, pull it, and you thinking, okay, the ring's gonna pop, the box is gonna pop open, the ring's gonna come back out of it. When we pulled the ring taut, pulled the ribbon, my ring was no longer on it. I looked in the ring box, it wasn't there. And then that was when, seconds later, I heard whoop, and I heard literally a physical object come through the bottom of the table. Now that table I did not examine, so I have to say that, But my witch stinks tell me that no, this was for real. This is actually, I was literally felt and heard my ring materialize through the table onto the hourglass. He took the cloth off and he said, "There's your ring, Janet." He said, "Is that the ring you gave me?" I said, "Yep." And he was spinning it around the center of the hourglass. And he's like, take a look at a place that your ring will probably never be again. And he's right. One-time thing that happened. And the only way to get it off, however, was he folded it up in the cloth. And to this day, I wish I would have asked him, because I'm curious if he would have allowed it, because it would have been a heck of a souvenir, If I would have verbally spoke what I felt, I would have asked him, "Oh, no, don't break it. Can I have the hourglass? Just let me keep it. Just let me keep it and keep my ring around the center of it, because that would be a nice way for me to remember this moment, because I'll probably never experience this again." But I didn't. He, I guess I was afraid he would say no, or, I didn't want to be embarrassed or humiliated or anything. I didn't have enough courage to ask him. So he, folded it up in the cloth and he broke the glass and then picked my ring up with this metal rod that he had and made sure there was no glass fragments on it and stuff. And you could see the sand laying there and the broken glass. And I put the ring back on my finger and I was in awe. I was in awe. I was there. I know what I felt. I know what I heard. I have to say that, yeah, there's a possibility there was some kind of a trap thing under the table. I don't know, because I wasn't allowed to examine the table underneath it. So I sat down, got to keep the rose, and then a few minutes later, and I don't remember exactly how it happened, but that was the grandiose of the whole thing. That was the most memorable and special to me. Not only the tickets with my friends, but the fact that David just acting like he knew Sue and just, oh, hi, Sue, like he knew her. And so we're sitting there, and then a few minutes later, my friend George got called up on the stage. I don't remember if David tossed him something or not. It may have been like if he did, it may have been like one of those, what the heck do they call them, that you put around the bride's leg, that they take off, and then the bachelor tosses it to somebody, whatever. It may have been something like that, but I don't know. However it happened, George got called up on stage as well, and David did a trick with him, and it was the passing through the rope trick, where David would literally wind the rope around his waist, and he would be able to pass through it, and everybody's going, how? George was holding on to one end of the rope, some other guy was holding on to another end of the rope, and George was like, Janet, I could not tell you how the man did it. I stood there, I experienced the whole thing. I don't know how he did it. So that was all well and good. Okay, now let me tell you at least this backstory, because it'll probably make the most sense of this whole thing and why the hi Sue was so, whoa, what the hell? But wow, cool. There was a time when we was at Mike and Sue's, when we were just kind of hanging out, and whatever, smoking a bowl, getting a nice buzz, and so on. And we got out the Ouija board, because there was a decent amount of us there. There was like maybe half a dozen people, somewhere around there. So it was a group of friends that had gotten together, and everybody knew I was a witch. Everybody else also into magic themselves. I don't know how many of them in the group considered themselves witches, but that didn't matter. It was just having a good time. Excuse me. Doggone stomach acid, I guess. So we're playing with the Ouija board. We turned out the lights, we lit some candles, and I did a protective circle around everybody before we even engaged in doing this, because, and this is just my lighter. It's my Capricorn lighter that my daughter got me. See, isn't he cute? So we decided to play with the Ouija board. And now I do not recommend this for anyone, because yes, they are very dangerous. They have done, I've heard some pretty bad, scary horror stories too that have happened to people that were not good. So we're sitting there playing with the Ouija board, and I was like, okay, who do we want to summon? I was just being honest, and it's like, obviously we aren't going to summon any bad spirits. Who do we want to summon? And they're like, well, I don't know. I can't think of anybody. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what. I said, we'll just kind of leave it open, and we'll say, okay, if there is a spirit that wants to come through and speak, you can come through and speak, but you better be a friendly spirit, or you're not going to be welcome here. And I would have cast them out. I wouldn't have thought twice. I would have cast them out. So we're sitting there, and we start playing with the Ouija board. Everybody joined hands, so it was kind of a seance in a way, a little bit, and I don't remember who was doing the Ouija board with me, or if I was just doing it by myself. But we had the energy connected, and it spelled out DGMS. We're like, DGMS? What the hell is that? So I thought, okay, this is a code. This is okay, what is the first word that starts with the letter D? So I was basically, it's like, what do you mean DGMS? First thing it spelled out, and it spelled out the whole thing at once. David got my summons. And my eyes got all big, and I'm like, oh my God, David Copperfield? I'm like, no way, this is not possible, It was definitely him. And I was like, okay, first of all, if this really is David, okay, you better be proven that it's you, because otherwise you're going to be cast out, because I'm not going to have any false spirits coming in here. I don't want anybody endangered. So we're sitting there, and I wrote out what it said. David got my summons, and everybody kind of looked at each other and like, whoa, damn. And I wasn't sure what to think. I mean, I just thought it was like just radical as crap, but sick and in a good way, That's sick. That's cool. Then, so we're all sitting there, and after we played with the Ouija board, we decided to do a seance. So, like I said, it was kind of a combination of the two. And we were sitting in the circle, and my friend Mike was sitting right across from me. And this was a decent-sized circle, because we moved stuff out of the way so we could all fit everybody, because this was Mike and Sue's apartment. So we're sitting there, and we're all doing a seance, and I'm like, okay, David, if this is really you, please feel free to, through one of us, give us a sign proving that it's you. And a few minutes passed. Nobody said nothing. Nothing seemed to be happening, but we all kept our hands, we kept connected, kept the energies there. And it was a protective circle. I always do protective circles before anything like that. And all of a sudden, so we're just like talking amongst ourselves, and we're still like blown away that Dave himself came, and we did not summon him. We were just kind of opening the door to, whoever wanted to come through, as long as it was a positive spirit, not a negative spirit. And all of a sudden, it was very low, and I didn't even notice that Mike had gone into a trance until this spirit spoke. And all of a sudden I heard, Janet. I stopped. I'm like, who said that? And they're like, we didn't do it. And then I heard it again, Janet. And then I zeroed in on Mike, and I saw that it was him doing it. And I was like, yes, who are you? What are you doing here? How can we? It's David. And I'm like, okay. I said, now come on. If this is really okay, you better be who you say you are, because I will not endanger any of my friends. And if you're a negative spirit and you're just messing with us, get out. Right now, just get out of my friend. But everybody was open. And, they're like, is that cool with everybody? Because I asked them, I said, does it matter what spirit this speaks through who? Does it matter who? And they're like, no, whoever wants, that's fine. So he's like, it's David. And I was like, okay. So we had a little bit of a conversation, and I felt like, okay, nobody feels threatened. Okay, maybe this really is him. But my question was, why? And I was like, I forget what exactly I said, but he said, I'm the only spirit here. And I was like, it was a mind blower. It was totally, this is the kind of video footage that you really would have loved, and I would have loved, but nobody thought of that. Nobody thought, I don't think any of us even had a camera, sadly. So there was that. Okay, I think that is at least one incident in particular proving that the incident that happened later at the Palace Theater, the reason why David turned around and looked at my friend, because she hadn't introduced herself or anything. She just bumped into him, and she turned around, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, oh, hi, Sue. What? How do you know me? So I think that was it. I think it started that way. I've been on here, an hour and 13 minutes. So let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else, or if this is a good enough, give it the old college try, and, play it back and see if it works. And if it does, and I'm able to get the audio and everything, great. If not, I might actually hook up my camera. I don't know if the audio from that through the computer somehow would maybe come through. Because I did a video couple months ago, and it was meant to be my first video that I was going to put on here. So I think what it's going to turn out to be is, like Chris said, I'm going to have to be on YouTube, do the live stream, and see how it goes. If there is no audio, then, well, that's a shame, because that's like over an hour of really good footage that I would love for you guys to be able to hear. But we may not be able to retrieve the audio. So fingers crossed. Stay spooky, fam. Paranormal Files. I love you guys, all of you. I mean, it's really great what you do. We appreciate you as much as you do us. because it's not easy, all the constant traveling that you do and all the expenses and all the losses and all the hectic and the getting the crap scared out of you. You know, some guy with long blonde hair coming at you so fast. I mean, you're just like, run, just get out of there. So I hope I did okay with this one. I'm going to go ahead and stop it, and then I'm going to go back, play it back, and it should automatically load this because I'm already on YouTube. It should automatically load it. The one before this, the one that was meant to be a live stream, I was just a really goofy look on my face because it was at night when I was getting ready to do it, but then we were watching TV and there was a bunch of chaos going on around us, so I thought, okay, maybe not tonight, let's do it another time. So best of luck to me, and let me stop this thing if I can even figure out how. Oh yeah, here we go, end stream. Peace, brothers. Stay spooky, stay cool, stay awesome. Keep doing what you do, and let's enjoy this together. Blessed be. Love and blessings to all.